All right, guys, so the Warriors will play the Spurs Saturday at 3 p.m. on ABC, but as you just heard, both teams missing arguably their most important player in Steph Curry and Kawhi Leonard. Stephen A., who's the bigger loss, though, Steph or Kawhi?
To me, it's clearly Kawhi Leonard. San Antonio Spurs have no chance of going anywhere. We all know this, and we know it because Kawhi Leonard's not there. It's the only reason that we know. Last year, when the Warriors were running roughshod over everybody en route to another NBA Finals appearance, even with Kevin Durant on their roster, last time we saw Kawhi Leonard when it mattered, they were up 23 on the Golden State Warriors with Kawhi Leonard putting on an absolute show and completely rattling the Golden State Warriors until Zsa Pachulia undercut him. And so what we have is a situation where the San Antonio Spurs are a good team, exceptionally well coached, with an overachiever right now like LaMarcus Aldridge, who's been balling. Rudy Gay is back in the lineup, etc. But in the same breath, we all know that we don't give them much of a chance of winning without Kawhi Leonard. You always have a chance with Kevin Durant on the floor, with Klay Thompson and Draymond Green. That is not the case with the San Antonio Spurs, and it's literally only because of Kawhi Leonard.
Well, I think what you're actually arguing there, it seems to me, is that the Warriors are better than the Spurs. I agree with that. I agree with you also that Kawhi Leonard's better than Steph Curry. If I had to choose either one of those guys healthy, give me Kawhi Leonard. I think when he's healthy, he's the second best player in the NBA. But the answer here is Steph Curry. Steph Curry is the bigger loss, and I will tell you why. Because the Spurs have been playing without Kawhi Leonard essentially all season. It's to the point where if Kawhi Leonard came back, and there was a fake story floating around yesterday, Kawhi Leonard's going to play in the first round. I got very excited for a second, Stephen A. But even when I saw it, I thought, who says they're better with Kawhi right now? Maybe they're worse. They have to reintegrate him. Who knows what he has right now? But Steph Curry means that the Golden State Warriors, suddenly you pull the rug out from under them. They have to adjust on the fly to no Steph. They've been the juggernaut again with Steph. Without Steph, they've really struggled, and it's not hard to see why. Look, what made the Warriors before KD even got there? And by that, I mean a team good enough to beat a hobbled Cavs team in the finals, and a team good enough to come within a hair of repeating as champions, but eventually losing to the Cavs in the finals. And that was with Draymond being suspended a game, as you've pointed out, and Steph being somewhat physically compromised. What made them the Warriors was Steph Curry. You have to pick him up from so far out because he has unlimited range. It creates more space for everyone. When guys rotate, other shooters have way open looks. That was one thing. And the very next thing that made them the Warriors was Draymond Green as his pick and roll partner and as a guy who could play the five and you could play five out because he could shoot from deep also. Of course, much better than he would normally be able to because of Steph Curry. So what happens when you take Steph out? Now, you add KD, you put him over the top. But the reason they've been struggling when you take Steph out, Klay Thompson shoots like 10% worse from three without Steph on the floor. So what does that mean? The dude shoots almost 45% from three with Steph on the floor. That's absurd bananas, all-time great, considering the number of threes he takes. So you take 10% off that. Oh, he's a 35% shooter without Steph? 35%, that's okay, that's good. There are guys who do that on every team. That's nothing special. And why is Klay on the floor? To do that. It's not to put the ball on the floor, drive, make decisions, grab rebounds. He can defend, he can do some things, but it's really to kill you from outside. Suddenly, Steph's not on the floor. Lots of teams have guys who can do what Klay is doing without Steph on the floor. And Draymond Green, though he also runs a great pick and roll action with actually KD, but he gets much less of it without Steph on the floor. So you're thinking Warriors, right? But you got to stop thinking Warriors. Without Steph on the floor, they're not the Warriors. Without Steph on the floor, they're a collection of talented players, but not so much more talented than many teams. Not as so talented as you would think. Now, they're more talented than the Spurs, Stephen A., but then the Spurs have Popovich, and he's managed to finagle a playoff berth from a team with virtually no one on it. So look, I'm not arguing Kawhi's not the better player. Not arguing that. I'm not arguing that the Warriors aren't better than the Spurs. I'm arguing Steph right now is a bigger loss for the Warriors than the Spurs not having Kawhi.
Well, you would have a very, very valid point with that long soliloquy, Max Kellerman, if the Warriors were playing themselves or a better team. but they're playing the San Antonio Spurs. And for the purpose of this conversation, it would be one thing if the Spurs were playing somebody else and the Warriors were playing somebody else. But the Warriors happen to be playing the San Antonio Spurs, which has the 27th ranked offense in the NBA out of 30 teams. Outside of LaMarcus Aldridge and his 23 points per game, where you could put somebody like David West or even JaVale McGee on him from time to time for crying out loud. The bottom line is outside of him, your second leading scorer on the team is Rudy Gay at 11.5 points per game. So what I am trying to say to you is that for the purposes of this series, because they're going against the San Antonio Spurs, the absence of Kawhi Leonard is far more profound for San Antonio than Steph Curry's absence is for the Golden State Warriors. Now, if the Golden State Warriors were going against Houston in the first round and San Antonio was going against New Orleans or going against Portland or somebody else, you'd have a point. But they're playing each other. And if you're the Golden State Warriors and you don't really have much to concern yourself with a team that ranks 27th offensively because they're without one of the top 3 players in the world who happens to be their leading offensive player, then it changes everything. And that's what this comes down to.